Hey Nerdherfers, it's your old pal Larry Brantley, bringing you another special bonus episode this week. The guys are out of town, so we're not having our usual meetup this week. But like I said, we always discuss so much stuff that there's always some kind of usable stuff left over. I do want to preface this by saying the bonus episode you're about to hear had occurred when we were halfway through a bottle of really good Hill Country whiskey. So please bear that in mind. We're going back to the books again because we're all book nerds at heart. We're going to talk about Cormac McCarthy and Neil Stephenson and just a whole bunch of other nerdy book type of things. And the speech definitely gets a little slurry toward the end, but we decided, what the hell, this is who we are, and hopefully you'll find it entertaining at the very least. So please enjoy this special bonus episode of Nerdherfers.
So I kind of want to go back and visit when we did our book nerd episode.
Okay, Airbender.
When we were talking about our the book nerd episode, and you mentioned Cormac McCarthy. First of all, so I don't have a lot of time to actually sit down and read a book, and plus with ADHD, it's hard to get through a page of anything.
Good to know.
So I usually listen to books like on the way to work and stuff, or when I'm driving in the car. And I have to say, even listening to Blood Meridian, I did a lot of rewinding.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I can't imagine trying to actually read that book.
What caused you to rewind?
Because it's
I haven't read it, so I don't know.
No, I'm just saying. So his writing style is pretty much fire hose.
Okay.
Right? And you'll be in a scene, and in 2 sentences, you're 30 years in the future.
Oh.
Right? So anyway, it was a great book. I really loved it. You and I need to discuss what the heck the judge did to the kid in the Jakes at the end, because there seems to be no consensus on that.
Yeah.
I did some digging on Reddit last night.
And I'm pretty sure McCarthy never said a word.
Yeah, he left it pretty ambiguous. And it was funny. One of the posters that was like giving his thoughts on the book and stuff apologized for using semicolons to Cormac McCarthy. And I did not realize that he had written No Country for Old Men, which I've only seen the movie. I haven't read the book.
Yes.
But in looking for more Cormac McCarthy books.
The Road.
Yeah.
That was another one.
Yeah. I realized, I saw that he had written that, and I was like, that makes total sense.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Total sense that he wrote that book.
Yeah. So, all that to say is, though it was a challenging read, I think you enjoyed it. Yeah?
I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Very much enjoyed it.
It's definitely a challenge to read, but I love that. I seriously, so I discovered Blood Meridian because I read a memoir of Stephen King's called On Writing. I was looking for some inspiration. I didn't consider myself a writer, but I was beginning to write. I read that, and then at the end of the book, there's an appendices where he lists like a bunch of his favorite books, and that was one of them. I'd never heard of it.
Yeah.
And he says in that, it's like, this is challenging for anybody.
Yeah.
But I promise you'll be a different person by the end of it.
Micah's turn.
So enjoy. I'm sorry. Are you getting my smoke signal?
Yes.
So I realized also how much I like fictional history, right?
Oh yeah.
And I realized one of the reasons we talked about Snow Crash,
which I bought a copy.
Yes. And if you've ever read any other Neil Stephenson books, like right now I'm going through his Baroque Cycle series. Mm-hmm. I'm in the Quicksilver book, and it's got major historical characters like Sir Isaac Newton and Cromwell and all these people, and there's alchemy in it and all this kind of stuff. So it's historical fiction, so it's got historical characters, but most of his books are some type of history, right? Yeah. And I realized one of the reasons I love Snow Crash so much is because it's actually a history lesson wrapped up in sci-fi.
Yeah.
Is what it is.
I really enjoyed that too.
Yeah.
Actually, I had a question for you. I recently picked up the Diamond Age. Does that fall into that same storyline, or does it go on its own path?
Yeah, it's a different thing.
So I think back in our first bonus episode when we were talking to books, you made fun of me, and I agreed with you because I didn't know who the author of Snow Crash
Neil
was.
Stephenson.
Neil Stephenson. And it turns out I actually have read one of his books, a book called Cryptonomicon.
Oh, I've got it in there, yeah.
Yeah. And
book.
so it was a book that I read while I was working on the set of Wishbone when we had like a whole lot of downtime. And you're right, it's a history lesson because it flips between the World War II era and what was then present day.
Wishbone?
No, believe it or not, it wasn't. It was not considered classic literature at the time.
Well, they did
in
Back
the
to the
90s.
Future. Why didn't they do
Wishbone and fatigues.
We didn't do Back to the
Crawling
Future.
through
We did The Time Machine by H.G. Wells.
That's right.
Which was not
The
directed
title of
by
the-
Robert Zemeckis, by the way.
The title of it was actually a spin on
Bark to the Future.
Yes.
Wow, I love that
My
you
turn.
knew that, but then you just thought we did a Back to the Future riff.
Well, I
on a
didn't take
show
time to
about
actually
a dog
watch
who
the
introduces
episode.
kids to classic literature. Thank you so much.
2 hours later.
Did either of you read or listen to the unabridged audio version of World War Z by Max Brooks?
I did not.
No, I
but it's
read it.
on my
I didn't
list.
listen to it.
I listened to it because, by the way, the audio version, he wrote a lot of stories that didn't make it into the book.
Mm-hmm.
And then they released it again, and it was way better.
Yeah, the book
and
was definitely
then
way better
the
than
movie.
Yeah,
But
the
I've
mo-
heard that the
movie was
audiobook
ridiculous.
is unbelievably fantastic.
It really is. I listen to it twice a year.
I'm telling you, if you haven't listened to the
That's how I
audio
am with
version
Ready Player One.
of Blood Meridian, you really should, because the guy that reads it is amazing. He's so intense, and
Fair enough. I
all
don't
his
know that I
characters
can do that because I've got a narrative in my head, but listen to World War Z.
are- By the way, I remember one episode I talked about this book series I was reading. Remember
I
talked
think.
about that, the one about the giant,
The hamsters?
The hamsters. I made it to book 3. There's 16 books in this series. I'm in book 3. I'm like, it's just the same thing over and over again. There's this character that's introduced. He's called Skippy. He's like this AI intelligence that's way ahead of everybody else. But the situations become the same. Like the guy that's the guy in charge, the interaction between him and this AI intelligence, they're all the same freaking thing. It's just over and over again. It's like the guy had
That's
nothing
when
else
you
to write
have
about.
nothing new to say.
Yeah, and that's why I was like, I was like, I can barely make it through 3. I'm not going to make it through 16. The first
felt
book
you
was so
coming.
good. Yeah, the first book was so good, and then by book 3, it was just the same thing over and over again.
That's a
Disappointing.
disappointment.
Yeah.
That's too bad. Hey, I got a question for you.
We have an answer.
Excellent. Have you gentlemen ever heard of a series called Casca?
No.
No.
This was introduced to me when I was probably about like 14 or 15 years old. And it's the story of the centurion that stabbed Jesus
Oh yeah.
in the side.
Yeah.
And so, like, it happens, Jesus' face goes all dark, clouds start happening, everything, and then he condemns him to eternal life. So it shows this character going through the ages. Each book is a moment in time with Casca living out, like, various parts of history, like every major war, Egyptian times versus spending some times in the Orient versus spending time in World War I, World War II, and he can't die. It kind of reminded me a little bit of very loosely, that Wolverine movie where he and Sabretooth are going through the ages, basically.
Well, that was
the Wolverine.
Wolverine.
And like they're getting shot and stabbed and everything, but they're just going through time, not able to die.
Mm-hmm.
But it's the same thing. It's like apparently Jesus will come back for him one day and let him die, but he's got to go through the ages.
Interesting, because the mythology around the arrowhead, the spearhead that
Yeah.
pierced Jesus was that if you possessed the spearhead, you couldn't die. Right.
Interesting.
Yeah.
But Casca, it's available on audiobook. I remember reading it when I was a kid because my friend was like, "Don't show your mom this because it's it's got some stuff in it." And I'm like, "Oh, okay." So I read it and I was like, "Whoa!" And so later on in life, I ended up finding it on audio.
So is it just a single book, or is it a series?
Oh, it's like there's so many Casca novels.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah,
Well, I'm telling you, I'm totally digging this Baroque Cycle by Neil Stephenson.
cool.
It is so good.
Yeah, I picked up that Diamond Age, and I thought that based on how it was reading is that it kind of paralleled some of the sci-fi aspect to it. So you read Diamond Age?
Yeah, maybe a little, but it's a different series.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So is there a series with Snow Crash?
No.
Okay. I thought it was independent.
It's independent, yeah. Yeah, but it was funny. Like I said, when I got into this Baroque cycle, I started realizing that, his thing is actually like fictional history. That's his actual thing.
Yeah.
And Snow Crash just happened to be wrapped up in this sci-fi, nice wrapper. But at the heart of this story, it's all about history of language and
Yep.
and human,
I really hope you enjoy Snow Crash
Yeah,
when
it
you
is so
finally.
good.
Well, I bought
the protagonist's name is a Japanese American named
Hero Protagonist. Yeah. So I bought 2 books at the same time. One of them, I'm a big fan of National Public Radio. I'll freely admit that, and they do a list every year of books. And one of them was called Mr. Texas, and it's basically a modern story of Texas politics by this guy who's the central character is a Army veteran, saw combat. He's a rancher in deep West Texas where there's drought and it's failing. And then a Woody Harrelson type character who's a lobbyist or a consultant decides he's going to make. So the consultant sees footage of this main character, Sonny, rescuing a child and a horse from a burning barn, and decides, I'm going to make that guy a representative and get him in politics. And so he does. And so it's the whole political spectrum in Texas and how, it's the dirty side of politics and how it really works. And it's fascinating and also really funny. What's that?
So there's a good side of politics?
No, there's not. I said, I believe what I said was dirty and fascinating. I didn't say good.
I'm just saying, you said there's a dirty side of politics. I'm like, isn't that the only side of politics?
It's all weird and gross. But it's also the way this guy Lawrence Wright writes it's hilariously funny. And so I'm reading that now, and I'm about 3/4 of the way through. But after that, it's Snow Crash.
Yep.
And I meant to tell you weeks ago that I had actually read a Neil Stephenson book.
Yeah.
In the 90s, Cryptonomicon.
Cryptonomicon.
Which was really enjoyable.
Yeah, it's a hard one to get through, though. It's a big book.
It is a big book, but I'm not afraid of big books.
Yeah.
And I'm not afraid of complicated writing, as you well know,
Right.
because I introduced you to Blood Meridian.
Yeah. Yeah, I have to check out some more Cormac McCarthy now. I actually want to read No Country for Old Men. I want to read the book because I like the movie so much. I'm like, the book has to be way better.
It is, but I will tell you this. The only guys who've ever come close. I liked The Road, the movie. I like Viggo Mortensen. It was all right.
Me too.
It was all right. That movie was not nearly as good as the book.
Yeah.
So if you like that movie at all, read the book because it's way
I don't think I've
better.
ever seen it, The Road. I don't think I've ever seen it.
Okay. Read the book first.
Right.
And then watch the movie and be slightly disappointed.
Well,
But-
apparently the guy that is slated to be the director for Blood Meridian, if it ever gets made, had made another Cormac McCarthy book into a movie. Because they were talking
Was it All the Pretty Horses?
maybe they were talking about all the,
That was the Border trilogy.
that basically his books are unfilmable, right? But this guy pulled it off somehow or something
Well,
like that.
No Country, the only reason that movie was as good as it was is because of the Coen brothers.
Yeah. Well, what's his name? The guy that played the assassin.
Javier Bardem,
Javier Bardem. Yeah, I love him.
Anton Chigurh.
He is I don't know. He's one of my favorite actors.
Agreed.
Everything he's in, even in Dune.
Dune.
He's amazing in Dune.
Yes.
I mean,
Absolutely.
there's this intensity about him.
Have you seen the second one yet?
Yes.
Oh, so good. So good.
So I'm saying that's what I was
haven't seen the
asking. Should
second
we
one
ever
just
do
yet.
movie reviews?
His
Because-
intent, yeah.
Definitely.
I love Javier Bardem. However,
Is he the same guy that played the antagonist in the latest Pirates movie? Undead.
yes,
Thank you.
he was. Can't remember the name of the movie, but yes, he was.
On Stranger Tides.
On Stranger Tides. There you go. Didn't really like that movie so much. But as Anton Chigurh on camera, because he was directed by the Coen brothers, brilliant. I don't think there's an actor alive today that can do Judge Holden justice.
I think that immediately in my mind when I started listening to that book and started listening to the judge, and the more I got to know the judge, oh crap, what's his name?
Here we go.
The guy that played Kingpin.
Oh, Vincent
Vincent
D'Onofrio.
Vincent D'Onofrio. Come on, tell me you don't think Vincent D'Onofrio could pull off the judge?
I think he could, maybe.
I think he could do it.
Because the first time I read Judge Holden, I thought of Kurtz in Apocalypse Now. Yeah, I just like, yeah, okay, yeah. I
really want to try to figure out what happened to the kid. So there's a theory that the kid survives because as the two men walk up to the Jakes and they're like, don't go in there, don't look at that. The guy that walks away and says, don't look in there, people say that's the kid, right? That does that.
Yeah,
the unnamed man.
I don't think it was.
But there's people that say, okay, so he raped and killed the kid. The other ones say that, when it talks about how he was naked, the judge is naked in the Jakes and the kid walks in and the judge envelops him in his flesh. Mm-hmm. It's more symbolic for the kid, basically, because he resisted the judge. Like he was the only character in the entire series that could see through the judge, right? And see that he was crazy and a load of crock. But
evil.
But at the end, he basically succumbs to him and it becomes like the judge. Like the judge says he'll live forever and never die. It's because new people become the judge.
Yeah, I don't think it's that. I think that he murdered the kid.
That's what I think. I think he murdered the kid.
I think he straight up murdered the kid.
The first time I listened to it, I thought
if you read any other, well, not any other Cormac McCarthy, but if you read most McCarthy novels, they don't have happy endings.
Yeah.
The protagonist does not live.
Yeah.
I'm gonna give you mine. Hang on.
I'm gonna tell you a little story.
I will one day ask a favor of you.
I was waiting for the Godfather.
That day may never come.
Yeah, it's definitely one. I think I need to read it because, like I said, I would get so lost. I'm listening to the book, and then all of a sudden, I'm just like, "What just happened?"
So a few years ago, I had to do an interview with Texas Monthly because they were doing an oral history of Wishbone. And I did a 2-hour interview with the guy who was writing the article.
Sorry. I just want to burn it now.
After you told us not to?
Yeah, don't do that.
So after the interview was over, the journalist and I got into a discussion about literature and whatever, and he brought up James Joyce's Ulysses. And I said, I've tried to tackle that book a couple of times. I've never been able to do it. And I'm Irish, so I feel like I failed. Wow, you're about to catch on fire, dude.
Yep. There it goes.
And he said, here's what I'm going to do. He goes, do you have a copy of the book Ulysses? I'm like, I do. He goes, there's a particular audio book of Ulysses. I'm gonna gift it to you. You're gonna set yourself on fire.
I'm trying to move it.
I read Ulysses while I was listening to it, and that helped immensely my understanding. Because, so have you ever read any James Joyce?
I don't know.
So, Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man.
No.
Ulysses.
No.
All right. So Ulysses is actually, like, if you thought Blood Meridian was difficult, Ulysses is stream of consciousness writ large.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
So, so I had to actually do some studying before I tackled it, but I would read the book while I was listening to it, and it helped immensely. And I think if you say you're going to read Blood Meridian, I absolutely encourage you to listen to your audiobook while you're reading it. This has been a production of Nerdherfers, copyright 2024, all rights reserved. No portion, and I do mean no portion of this broadcast may be used without permission. Please visit nerdherfers.com for more information and full legal disclaimer, you nerd.